All right, y'all. Welcome to the first episode of Gridiron Brawl. We are your co-hosts, Sam, Pat, and Reason. We are so excited to bring this series to you guys on the Brawl Network. Really looking forward to it. Let's just go around, introduce ourselves real quick. I guess I can go first. I'm Sam. I'm a huge Niners fan, as you can see by this background. I have a YouTube channel called Niner Wires where I do a lot of Niners streams there. Do a lot of other stuff on my Twitter and Instagram. My Twitter is at Niner Wires Sam. My Instagram's at NinerWire_YT. But yeah, that's just basics of me. If anyone else wants, if you guys want to go, then go right ahead.
Yeah, my name's Pat. Pat Traina is my Twitter name. I started a football website, Off the Gridiron, in 2015 while I was in college, and I've been keeping that going. Off the Gridiron _ is the Twitter. So I started at the Brawl Network during the XFL season. I was one of the hosts for the XFL Brawl. This is my second podcast. I'm ready to go, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I guess my name's Reason. That's obviously not my legal name, but that's what we'll call me. I host Inside the NFL on YouTube, over 1,000 subscribers, basically Dolphin-centric content, but we also cover a multitude of different NFL topics. We break down film analysis. I'm kind of a film junkie. I'm kind of a draft junkie. I'm also a contributor to Dolphins Brawl. And yeah, man, this is my first podcast with the Brawl Network. Excited to get things going here. And yeah, they may have stuff up behind them, but don't worry. My man cave's being built downstairs, and in a few weeks, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff behind me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we already got two Dolphins comments right there from Dolphin82 and Jason Greaves. I think, isn't Jason your co-host for Inside?
No, they're both just subscribers to the channel.
Oh, just subscribers.
Dolphin82 is actually one of my mods.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I mean, we already got a lot of presents coming in from Dolphin fans. Hoping to get some Packers fans in. I also forgot to mention I do write for Brawl Network for the 49ers. I've already written a few articles. I should have another one coming this week, so make sure to stay tuned for that. All right, yeah, so that's just the basics of us. And today we're going to be really talking about, just go through some NFL news. We're going to do this probably every show. And today we're going to mainly be talking about the contracts. After that, we're going to talk about COVID implications for the season. As you know, the COVID pandemic is just lingering on. So we'll have to talk about that a bit more, how that's going to impact the season. After that, we're all going to mention some breakout guys. So you guys ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm down.
All right, perfect. So I thought a good way to start off would probably just be to talk about the contract extensions. We got a few ones. The two main ones were Kittle and Kelsey. If you guys want to add on to those, go right ahead. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for George Kittle and Travis Kelsey for the tight end position, that was a huge win for the future of the tight end position. You see offensive tackles and wide receivers getting paid in the high teens, even 20 million now. Tight ends weren't even passing 10 million. Jimmy Graham was last year the highest paid tight end per year at $10 million, I believe, somewhere around that. And now you see the 15 mil, it's only up, but you see George Kittle without pretty much an argument could be made, but he's pretty much the best tight end blocker in the game, and he's probably one of the best, if not the best, receiving tight end in the game. So he does so much for an offense, blocking and receiving. So I think it almost could be a steal down the line. In a couple of years, they could look back on that deal, and the 15 million could be a big, a nice deal for George Kittle in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that will be a steal. I'm going to talk about it a bit later. I want to give my thoughts on the deals first, but that is definitely going to be a steal. Looking at the next tight ends that are coming up, which I'm going to talk about later. I want to talk about Zach Ertz a bit later. But, I mean, as a Niners fan, like, you saw the page George Kittle hashtags all over Twitter, all over Instagram. Like, we were just waiting and waiting for him to sign. Finally got it done. And luckily we did it before Kelsey, which I think was huge, because I think if Kelsey got it done before, Kittle would have saw that deal and said, oh, I'm the best tight end in the league. I need to up that by a lot, when instead he just upped it by a little bit. So we got it done. We got only 15 mil a year. There were reports that he wanted like 20 mil, which I don't think was reasonable at all. So yeah, he got what he wanted, and we have him for the future. So I mean, as a Niners fan, I'm absolutely thrilled. I mean, you see that jersey framed right there. So
yeah. Another thing to point out too is Travis Kelsey's 4 years older than George Kittle, so they might be comparable players right now, maybe the same type of player, but that's 4 years younger difference. Tight end, the end of Travis, 4 years, Travis Kelsey, or left on his contract 4 to 6 years. That'll pretty much be the end of his career, but that's keeping him in that that pretty much trying to build a dynasty with Pat Mahomes. Great deal, but just pointing out, George Kittle's 4 years younger. He's 26 in the prime of his career.
I think the most amazing thing is that Kansas City in the middle of free agency had $179 of cap space, and they've managed to extend Chris Jones, who I think, you can make the argument right there. He's the best nose tackle in football. They managed to extend Travis Kelce, and they managed to extend Patrick Mahomes. And it's not really that much of a difference. When you go at the annual average, you're only looking at about $688,000 of difference of an annual average. I do think Travis Kelce is better blocking in the pass game. I think Kittle, when it comes to blocking, the run game is really where he shines. You can make the argument he's a better receiver at this point in his career, but Travis Kelce also has to deal with a whole lot of weapons around him. Whereas, who's George Kittle really fighting for targets with? Deebo Samuel and now maybe Brandon Ayuk. Whereas Travis Kelce, basically, you got McCall Hardman. He's up on the come up. People sleeping on Demarcus Robinson. Sammy's already there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get his fair share of targets out of the backfield too. I think George Kittle is more valuable to the 49ers than Travis Kelce is to the Chiefs. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very unique opportunity right now for the 49ers receivers, skill position players, because you get Deebo Samuel, questionable for week 1, might not play. And
probably going to be out from what I've heard.
Probably going to be out.
Yeah.
Travis Benjamin opts out. So now you bring in Tavon Austin, J.J. Nelson, and Kendrick Bourne can really be a big – he could be a breakout type of player this year with Brandon Ayuk. But Dante Pettis is one of those type of players where he's going to have to really step up. He struggled last year. He's going to have to really come out and play.
And he was a lot of people's favorite for breakout player last year.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He had a good rookie year.
Speaking of while we're talking about Bourne and Pettis, from what I've seen, Bourne has killed it at training camp. Pettis had a really good day today, and Garoppolo came out on the mic, said that this dude's working his ass off. This dude's going to improve. And then Ayuk, like you saw on the first day they were on the field, like everyone there was taking note how Jimmy G and Ayuk were just connecting on the spot right there. So I think the future is definitely bright for those receivers and Kittle. And then you mentioned Travis Benjamin. I don't think that's going to make a difference at all. Like you have Richie James as our kick returner. Tavon Austin, I don't think is going to make that big of a difference. I think there are a few people that are really high up on him that Shanahan and him maybe together could do something. And then Trent Taylor as well. That guy's going to have a breakout season maybe. He was one of Jimmy G's favorite targets when they were both healthy. So
Jawan Jennings is tough too. He's like a 6th-round pick from Tennessee. Sure. Tough receiver after the catch. He could be possibly a difference maker and as a rookie. I don't know. It's tough. We're going to talk about that. It's going to be tough for rookies to really make a difference. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, J. Michael Hasty is a guy I'm looking at.
Love that guy.
Running back. I think
absolutely.
McKinnon doesn't step up. I think he can really have a shot without Matt Breida.
Yeah, I don't know if you checked out my channel, but I have been just constant, like every episode since we signed Hasty and drafted the other guy, Charlie Warner. I just love both of those guys so freaking much, man. Like those two are going to have like vital roles in the offense. And I think with like, it's the offense, the sky's the limit for the offense. Like I think there's a lot of people saying Niners could have the number 1 offense and defense this year, which is usually unheard of. So I think especially like now you got Kittle back, you got that leader of the offense, one of the leaders of the offense with Jimmy G, I should say. And now like, the sky's the limit. They're going to just start killing it with that Kittle extension. So yeah. And then also you brought up a point about how the Chiefs, like they signed Mahomes, they signed Chris Jones, they signed Kelce. Like what's the future like for them? Because they're not going to have any cap come a few years down the line. And I just don't know. If you guys have any input on that, I'd love to hear that.
They've been doing a pretty nice job spreading it out. I went into it because I was thinking the same thing. And Sammy Watkins, the type of guy who's making, a good amount, at least $12 million, something like that this year. But his contract runs out. And it's a lot of thing where almost they're like spreading the money out pretty good. But I think down the line, they're going to have a lot of trouble with this. Once Mahomes over $40 million starts kicking in, it's going to get
I don't think so, because when that starts kicking in, he really doesn't start seeing that big money till about 4 or 5 years in.
Yeah.
And you have to think about it. On average, this year's going to be the one, they're trying to spread the cap money around so it doesn't hit, but on average, the cap goes up about $10 million per year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Matthew.
if you do the math in the 4 or 5 years when he's going to be hitting $45 million, that's going to be all the new cap space. So they're still going to have 200 million behind that because it's at 198 million right now. So if you add 4 years on the average at 10 per year, you're going to be sitting at, that's basically Mahomes' money by the time it kicks in.
Yeah.
And I'm not really worried about that because I think, in 4 or 5 years, I think that's going to be a bargain with the way that, the salary cap is moving with quarterbacks, because quarterbacks right now are taking, guys who don't deserve it are out here taking a little bit over 20% of a cap. And the difference with this is they've managed. See, you got to look at it in 5-year windows. Don't look at it 10 years out. You got to look at it in 5-year windows. And you look at it, they've got their core basically for the next 4 years. So their window is now. Their window is to win now. And then if a team, and this is what I will say, one of my favorite, because we needed offensive line help in Miami this year. One of my favorite offensive linemen coming out was Lucas Niang out of TCU. I think he's got the potential to be the best tackle in this draft class. All he's got to do is stay healthy, a couple durability issues, but the man is an absolute mauler, absolute beast. And what did they do? They drafted Lucas Niang because they knew they weren't going to be able to extend Mitchell Schwartz when his contract comes up. And Mitchell Schwartz is he's arguably a top 10 tackle, and he's a top 3 right tackle in the NFL right now.
Absolutely.
And that's how you do it, man. Like if Tyreek's going to want too much money, start.
Tyrann Mathieu is also going to pay him.
But he's going to be on the other side of 30, man.
His deal's almost
over. You can let him watch. These guys you draft their heir apparents a year before their contracts go up, and that's exactly what you can see they're starting to do. And I'll point people to Lucas Niang and Mitchell Schwartz as a perfect example. Good teams, they draft their replacement, so it's a seamless transition, not in terms of production, but someone stepping into that role when you can say, walk, I'm not going to pay you. You pay your core guys, other guys, you got to look at them as just benefits to your roster that you can replenish as the time comes. It's all about, it's not just about contracts and salary cap. That's where the scouting department and good drafting really comes into play. Not getting a star right away, but getting that soon-to-be star or that soon-to-be replacement a year before you let a big-ticket guy walk. That's how scouting departments make their money.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even really think of that much. Like, I'm kind of looking – usually when I look at teams and analyze them, like one of the things I've always tried to improve on is looking more outside the box, especially like not with the Niners, just like outside the Niners and other teams. But that's definitely one where you have to look outside the box. The Chiefs are doing that really well. And I mean, you can look I think the average NFL fan would just say like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the perfect example of that. They want him to come in and replace Damian Williams. Obviously that's going to happen a bit earlier than they wanted. But, I mean, the sky's the limit for him at this point. Like, it's looking really good for that team. The future's looking bright with Mahomes.
I think that was a luxury pick they could afford to make in the first because of how the roster is already structured and the talent they already have. And we all know they're a legitimate contender even without Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? So I think that was a luxury pick that they could really afford to make. I look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire more of a cherry on top as opposed to a need. The problem when you get into drafting is where teams are in the rebuild mode. When you're in the rebuild mode, a la the Miami Dolphins, you have to draft best player available, stars right away, impact players right away. Whereas if you're a contender and you're going through your roster and you're looking at guys like, look, perfect example. How do we not know that McCall Hardman they don't expect him to take a leap? And when Tyreek's got to be up for his next contract, Hardman's going to be the guy that gets paid.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not saying that's going to happen. But you can tell that's like McCall Hardman just looks like a bit of a poor version of Tyreek Hill. Like it's that's it. Tyreek Hill for his size has a crazy catch radius. I'll give him that. But speedy guys, 4.3 guys. Killer on streaks, go routes, open space. They'll murder you once the ball's in their hand. So, I mean, they're situating themselves too, where they're also drafting by athletic profile So if they lose a guy like that to injury, someone can even slide in, like a Hardman could take over the targets.
Yeah, they have to focus so much attention defenses on Tyreek Hill's speed, and then Pat Mahomes in general, Travis Kelce across the middle. That now you add in that Edwards-Helaire, that McCole Hardman, that speed with that could really there could be so much to cover,
Yeah, I mean, as a Niners fan, just speed, just absolutely. I said before the game, speed would kill us in the game. It absolutely did. Like, you saw Sherman getting burnt. The entire secondary was just like off. They couldn't handle that speed. And if they're gonna keep that up, plus add more weapons, it's over for they're gonna be the next Patriots dynasty.
When I knew you guys were in that fourth quarter when you guys were gonna have a problem was because from what I see, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm pretty much right. Your guys' MO is get pressure with the front four. You don't have to send a fifth.
Yeah, for sure.
And what happened in the fourth quarter, you guys were starting to send a fifth and a sixth guy, and Mahomes started exposing that because that's not your MO. You guys zone coverage.
Yeah.
Get pressure off the front four. And I got into a discussion with the guy. I think you guys defensively, Javon Kinlaw is going to be better than DeForest Buckner. I don't care what anyone tells me.
I'm with you.
I agree.
Kinlaw is an absolute beast. So I think you guys are going to be even scarier. And what's scary to me when I look at your front four, because I think we play you guys week 5. And we potentially could have Solomon Kinley, Robert Hunt, and Austin Jackson all starting with Eric Flowers and Ted Karras in the interior. What scares me about you guys is, who are you going to scheme for? You're not going to scheme for Javon Kinlaw. He's a rookie. You're going to scheme for, D Ford. You're going to scheme for Nick Bosa. You're going to scheme Eric Armstead. You're not going to
even like DJ Jones.
You're not going to scheme for Javon Kinlaw. So the fact that other people on that line are going to be getting double teams and Javon Kinlaw might be able to come free, that's a very, very scary.
And Fred Warner, Greenlaw, and Quan Alexander can cover so much ground in the zone that if they're secondary, they had trouble with that Akello Witherspoon, who was going to start him or Mosley towards the late of the year. If they can have one guy that I know they have Jason Verrett coming back. I don't know if he'll do something.
I think they've had a lot of snaps with him for the first team, but I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to stay healthy all year. So I mean, you might see him play, but I have no clue how.
But I agree with Reason. I think Kinlaw, their scheme is setting up so well for him. I think he's just going to disrupt so much.
Defensive rookie of the year, possibly. I'm telling you, just because based off the double teams and the single cover and the single man situations he might find himself in. Yeah. Oh boy, it might be nasty.
Yeah, not only that, like the depth of that Niners D line with like DJ Jones, Ronald Blair.
All first round picks starting, it's crazy, you guys.
And then who was it? It was Robert Saleh came on the mic today, said I have a man crush on Ronald Blair. Now, the average NFL fan doesn't even know who Ronald Blair is, and that's the thing. They're going to cover these other guys, and then Ronald Blair is just going to come on the outside, get the quarterback every time. What, Deion Jordan too? I mean,
come on, guys, you're talking to a Dolphin fan. Deion Jordan, don't get excited, bro.
No, I know. That's why I threw it out there.
Don't get excited, okay? We moved up in the draft for him, and that's arguably the worst draft pick in the Dolphins' history. He'll be all right. He's just, he's a body, man. You know what I mean?
He's not going to be no Nick Bosa or D4, but he's going to be a solid depth piece. Hopefully, I think he had a fairly decent season with the Raiders last year, so that was good. So, we'll see what happens with him, but I think that's a solid depth piece.
You know what's crazy, though? If you look at what was Deion Jordan in college, Deion Jordan was an outside linebacker that people tried to convert to a 4-3 defensive end, and now people are trying to convert into an interior guy. People aren't even using from the day that man entered the league, his skill set hasn't been properly utilized. And what he's built for, because there's a lot of players that are scheme specific. I give an example. I'll go back to the Dolphins. Jerome Baker struggled last year so mightily because he's given the role of a Mike linebacker in the 3-4 when the guy's a wide 9-4-3 outside linebacker. He's a will outside linebacker, man. He's not a Mike. And shooting gaps, he was exposed in coverage. He was terrible in the run game. When offensive line got to the second level. They blew him up because he ain't built for that. And I look at Deion Jordan. He, to me, coming out of college, he was a scheme-specific guy, and I don't think he's been utilized properly. And I think that's why you'll never see him get close to anywhere near the ceiling people expected on that game.
Yeah, Packers, a guy to me, Rashawn Gary, is like a guy that his rookie year seemed so awkward. Like you didn't really know where he was going to be. They kind of just had him out there, but they didn't really have a role for him. He just didn't fit the scheme well. So I don't know. They had him as like a linebacker when he was the end in college.
Yeah, that's my problem when you come to the draft and people are like, "Oh, take the best player available." No, you can't take the best player available. Sometimes,
take the best scheme
player.
fit.
Like I'll tell you right now, it wouldn't have been smart for us to invest a top 5 pick in Chase Young. Chase Young's not a scheme fit for a 3-4 defense because of the responsibilities we ask our ends. In our outside linebackers, you got to go drop in the flats. Sure. You got to drop back in coverage. You got to move around. And if you look at Chase Young, he's never covered the flats. He's never dropped back in coverage. He's never moved along the line. It's either the right end, left end, pin yours back and go. You know what I mean? And just going basically off you guys, if you look at the impact of how you guys have built your front, it seems like the Washington Redskins are basically taking the blueprint you guys have created and they're creating their own version of it, because very similar. It looks like they're beginning coming with a very, very similar defense to what you guys run.
Their front's gonna be scary.
I love that. I mean, I'm honestly like one of my bold. We're gonna talk about bold takes maybe in a later episode, but one of my bold takes is 2 to 3 years down the line, the Washington football team is going to be a Super Bowl contender. And that might sound crazy. That might sound crazy right now because their offense is just a complete mess. But I mean, that defense, look at the Niners. No one thought the Niners offense was going to do that much last year because no one had any questions about there were so many questions about Jimmy G. But then the defense is the thing that stepped it up and really just took them to the promised land and it's going to keep them successful.
The amount of talent there with Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Kerrigan, Thomas Davis, even a veteran in there. There's a lot in there. There's a lot to work with. That
and
it's gonna be hard.
And what's his face? That Ionis or
Ionitis, yeah.
He killed it last year, right?
He's good. He's
killed
good.
It last year.
He's
and
legit,
another thing too, even if they do kind of crap the bed a little bit this year, they could end up with Penei Sewell, and then now they're starting to build their offensive line.
Yep, 100%. That guy's a stud.
Oh, he's the best. I've been preaching on my channel for months now. He is the best player, let alone tackle, I've basically watched film on in at least the last decade. Best tackle I've seen come out since Orlando Pace.
Yeah, I was watching. The was it Brian Baldinger's a quick 2-minute video he did on Twitter of him. But I've known about him since he's a freshman. This guy's a man. This dude's
for sure
can't miss
top
pick in the draft, top 3.
As a freshman, he was the highest graded tackle in collegiate football by PFF standards. So I think he had a 93.7 overall grade as a freshman.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. Also, I just want to point out, if you guys see me using this towel, the only reason I'm doing that is so hot in Oakland right now. I don't even know what the temperature. It just feels so hot. I just want to point that out.
Here's the real question: why aren't you a Raiders fan?
Why am I? That's a long story, and I can just explain that really quickly if y'all want me to. It's a bit of a long story, but I mean, I kind of maybe 10 years ago when I first really started football, I followed both teams. And then the Raiders fired Hugh Jackson. I got really mad about that. I know that sounds absolutely crazy knowing Hugh Jackson. So I just said, you know what, I'm just going to be a Niners fan. And thank God that worked out because, I mean, I can't imagine being a Raiders fan right now. But, I mean, I do represent Oakland with the A's. I don't know if you can see that cup, but it's supposed to be an A's cup, probably just really faded off. So.
I'm from New Jersey, and I'm a Packers fan because my dad, but I don't live in Wisconsin or anywhere near.
Yeah, none of us live in our home state in the cities for our home team. I mean, I'm closest to my team, but Niners are an hour away. So, yeah, it's always cool to see fans just how they're fans of that team. So, yeah, for sure.
You know what, bro? This might be the year to start jumping on that Oakland bandwagon because
Vegas now.
Vegas, yeah. Them and the Broncos are my sleepers in the AFC this year.
Broncos are Broncos 100% my sleeper. I think they're definitely the sleeper team of the year.
All three receivers, Hamler, Judy, and Sutton are all number ones anywhere in the NFL.
I'm a Penn State fan. I watched Hamler up close the past 2 years. The dude is unbelievable.
Bro,
I saw Allen Robinson and Godwin. They're obviously amazing, but
Yeah,
Hamler's
sure.
so
Give
expensive.
me Micah Parsons next year in the draft, please. Thank you very much.
Oh my God.
He's been the best defensive
Dude,
player I've ever
I
seen there.
love
At
Micah
Penn State.
Parsons.
Oh my
Probably,
God.
You see,
Oh.
Penn State linebacker Navarro Bowman, Micah Parsons. There you go. That's I'm not. That's I don't really. That's not my comparison because I don't really follow college football as much as you guys do. But Penn State, man, they know how to breed their guys.
This dude was different. Like Penn State, like there was always linebackers that were like good in the system, real talented, could be first on picks. This guy's different. This guy will like
transcended.
It's crazy.
Well, you know, it's funny because my co-host is a huge Yetur Gross-Matos fan.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I found
I love Gross-Matos.
Every time I found myself watching Yetur Gross-Matos, my eyes always shifted to wherever Parsons was on the field, bro. Like it was just he's that good, man.
Yeah,
he's that good, man. I know. All right, you guys want to move on to the next topic?
Yeah,
sure.
Let's do it.
All right, so next topic, we just want to talk about some COVID implications for this upcoming season. As you all know, COVID's just impacting this country, still doing so. And I think it's going to take a major impact, not only this year on the NFL, but for the future. I mean, obviously, there's a ton of college football seasons that are just getting canceled left and right. The draft class, this upcoming draft class is just going to be, I don't know how to explain it, but you're going to see this is probably going to be the most bust heavy first round class as well as steal heavy because you're going to see so many bust first rounds, so many steals, maybe even the 7th round. So, yeah, I mean, do you guys got anything you want to add to that? I mean, there's a lot. So, I mean, if you guys just want to bring up a topic, then go ahead.
I'll give you a fair warning on who I think has early bust in the first round of the top 10 written all over him. Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. I don't get the hype. He's really raw, and he's a guy who I think would have needed another year or two to really work. He's just too raw, man. You know, it reminds me
a senior?
No, he's.
So he might stay. Then. That might be a good idea.
No, he's declared. He's got an agent.
Oh, he declared. All right, never mind then.
So he's prepping for the draft, and he reminds me in terms of. I'm not going to talk about skill comparison, but in terms of scary rawness, in terms of why I'd go away. Farrell from the Raiders, if you guys remember when he went.
Yeah.
He really raw. You know what I mean? You saw the flashes,
I know you're saying.
Really raw. I get that with a lot with Gregory Rousseau. So I get, and what's crazy is, this is a really deep draft with wide receivers. And, a lot of these players, it's crazy because you need, look at Rashad Bateman heading into the season was my wide receiver 1. He reminds me a lot of Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know why. I just look at him and I see Odell. And I think, to keep up with a Jalen Waddle who's going to be playing, or to keep up with a Jamar Chase who's going to be playing, who I think is a little overrated, people. I think, a guy like that could slip to the mid of the first and he could be an absolute steal or late in the first because there's no tape on the guy, right? It's a really unique situation. And then you look at right now, we were talking about this before we went live. Looks like Jordan Love is 3rd behind, on his depth chart. It looks like what's his face?
Tua.
Jalen Hurts is 3rd. It looks like Tua is 3rd because we're expecting these rookie quarterbacks to go up against even backups who have multiple years of experience. Of course, they're going to look more comfortable and they're going to flash more in the first or second day of padded practice. And I think the rookies, more than anyone, needed these preseason games. I'll go to the Dolphins, for example. My whole thing was, okay, Chan Gailey, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been in his offense for 5 years total between the Jets and the Buffalo Bills. So my whole thing was if we're only playing 1 or 2 games, get Fitz out there for a series and then give the rest of the game to Rosen and Tua. Same thing I would say over here, Green Bay, Jordan Love is losing valuable snaps. Even if they're against 3rd, 2nd stringers, those are valuable snaps, man, because at least you're in real-time game situations. You can even practice 2-minute drills if you really want to get fancy with it and see what you got. These are all the things you can test in game. So the fact that no one can see this, I think, more of the skill positions are the ones that can stand out and flash a little more, like wide receivers, running backs. I think those have the better chances of flashing more because they get the ball. You can see what they do against defenders in open space on the practice field. You can still have an 11-11 drills up, get contested catches. So to me, it's a lot harder for the quarterback class. under these circumstances, especially with no preseason games. And I think I think a lot of people, Burrow, what's the option? No wonder he's starting. What, are you going to start Ryan Finley?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, Ryan Finley was, he's only a second-year guy, terrible last year. So, he's probably the only quarterback that's going to, start right away. And we all talked about this before we went live. We all think he's going to get thrown to the wolves, and he's probably going to get eaten alive.
True.
So,
I mean, to be fair to Burrow, he has been studying the Bengals offense like way before he was drafted. Like, from what I've heard, like maybe a month or so before like he was drafted, the Bengals knew that he was going there. He was studying the offense all that month. So by the time he was drafted, he was fairly familiar with the Bengals offense. So I think I just personally think he's a bit raw. That's why I think he's going to bust. But I feel like, I mean, with the COVID implications, it's going to hurt him. But I do think he does have a head start compared to guys like Tua, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, all those guys who are playing as well.
The one thing with Burrow that I think, I don't know if this might, I think, could become implications down the road is the dude's like way older than a lot of these quarterbacks. For example, he was 4 years older than Trevor Lawrence in the national championship last year. And it's kind of crazy to think about Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, a lot of these guys, Daniel Jones. They're all younger than Joe Burrow.
Even Josh Rosen.
Right? Josh Allen. Every one of these guys. Baker Mayfield's even right around the same age. Pat Mahomes is not even like maybe a year older than him. So it's one of those things that's like, if he doesn't really, with the whole not having preseason, and he has a really, really bad offensive line for the most part, like if Jonah Williams doesn't step up, he might not even be able to throw the ball. So say he's getting sacked all year and doesn't really get it to gel with the offense. He's going to be soon 25 years old. It's one of those things that Jordan Love's 21 years old. He could sit for a year behind Aaron Rodgers, be 22. He could sit another year behind Aaron Rodgers, be 23, and he still would be younger than Joe Burrow than right now.
I want to tell you this, Pat. I was banging the table. If we don't take Tua, Jordan Love. The man can throw. The one thing, you know what? He has almost just as I would call him a hair underneath Herbert and Eason's arm strength. He can throw off any platform. People really didn't take into context the lack of talent. I mean, who was his best player before? Probably was Darwin Thompson, who's in Kansas City now, right? Was his best player the year before, and he lost. I think he lost what? He lost 8 starters on his offense, including the offensive line. It was like a brand new offensive line. You saw the guy. Guys weren't getting separation, and he was just throwing it because I'm either going to get killed or I got to put the ball up to you. The fact that he even finished in a plus, and this is what, let me throw something at you, Pat, because I know you probably hear it. Oh, he threw 20 touchdowns. He threw 19 interceptions. Go look at Dan Marino's senior season at Pitt. He threw more interceptions than he threw touchdowns. I'm not saying Jordan loves Dan Marino, but off these people's standards, the Miami Dolphins should have passed on Dan Marino. You know what I mean? Jordan Love has the ability. I'm telling you right now, if they hit his ceiling, that guy is going to be a top 10, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers better be looking over his shoulder. I know he got the little twig legs going on with Jordan Love, but you gotta look over your back with that guy. That guy's gonna be very, very 100%. Talented, man.
And the last point I want to make with these rookie quarterbacks is Joe Burrow was throwing the ball to Jamar Chase, to Justin Jefferson, had an NFL offensive line, had Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back, had an NFL
entire
defense.
offense. Yeah, the entire team was just stacked.
But you also got to go deeper than that, right? Their scheme.
Yeah,
Joe Brady. Everyone talks about Joe Brady brought over the New Orleans, but look into the scheme. What is that scheme that he brought over? What's the number one thing? Joe Brady is a former wide receiver himself. That whole scheme they brought over was to manufacture space for wide receivers. That's why when you watch Justin Jefferson highlights, Jamar Chase highlights, there's no one around them most of the time.
Exactly.
Because it's like the Oregon with Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota didn't have to make a lot of tight window throws because Chip Kelly schemed that it was going to manufacture space for his receivers. So a lot of Marcus Mariota highlights are a lot similar to Joe Burrow, where guys are wide open. Joe Burrow's better than him. I'm not saying, I'm just telling you. That's what that offense was done. That offense was ran by a former receiver to manufacture space for its receivers. And another thing not enough people talk about with Joe Burrow, the advantage Joe Burrow had over everyone was Joe Burrow had online correspondence courses all last year. So he was spending the morning to afternoon in the film room with his coaches while Tua, Herbert, and I'm not a Herbert fan. I think he has bust written all over him.
Yeah, I have bust all over him.
Jordan Love, Jacob Eason, all these guys were in class while Burrow was able to study film and then go home and do his online course. And that's a big advantage, man.
100%. And what Sam was saying before too was, my bad, Sam, was that you were saying like bust, like a lot of these quarterbacks next year's class could be bust, or like you could find a sleeper. Joe Burrow wasn't supposed to be at high a 6th round pick last year. The year before, the number 1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield, wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the top 1st round or anywhere near that. 3 years ago, Kyler Murray, the year before, was supposed to go to the Oakland A's and play baseball. So there's so many things where the top guy the year before, like everyone was saying Sam Darnold's going number 1, and he didn't go number 1. A lot of that happens and they fall. Teddy Bridgewater, I remember back in the day, was supposed to be the first pick. A lot of people preseason were saying he was going to go first roll. He fell to the last pick of the 1st round. And it's just one of those things that a lot of it's hype. A lot of it, now some conferences are playing next season and some aren't. So you're going to get a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Everyone really knows he's already good and everything, but you're going to watch another year of tape on him, but you're not going to have probably another year of tape of Justin Fields or Trey Lance. So that's where I think it's going to be really interesting. You're going to have to make that deception scouts.
For sure. And I mean, like, if let's say Big 12 SEC, they cancel seasons for some reason. Right now, I don't think there are any plans to do that. ACC, I don't think there are any plans right now. But let's say they do that. Like the mock drafts you have are probably going to be right because people aren't. No, they're not going to be right. I should say they're going to be all over the board. But like you got Trevor Lawrence 1. I should say the rankings are going to be right, like pretty much the same because you only have that tape. Like you're not going to see any new plays, any new scheme, any team that had like a coach fired, like and the player was in the bad scheme fit. They're not going to be able to prove themselves. They could go undrafted. You could get undrafted steals, but just in the college football world, there's just going to be a huge ripple effect leading into the NFL. Hope you guys get what I'm saying. I know I kind of like
they're gonna have to rely on exactly. They're gonna have to rely on like the coaches from the college. They're gonna have to interview the college coaches and say who are the sleepers on your team. You'll get a guy, for example, for Penn State. We were just talking about Mekhi Parsons. I watched KJ Hamler. I watched, but Pat Fryermuth, from what I've seen,
love him. My tight end 1, baby.
He's a dominant tight end, right? He was a dominant tight end last year. I don't even think he needs to play another game. I think he'd be 1st round tight end. I was watching Gesicki. I think Fryermuth's a more all around tight end. I think he's the real deal. So it's like,
for sure.
I think there's guys that we're not going to need another year of film, but then there's guys that on Alabama were a sophomore. They were the 2nd or 3rd string because they had Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs in front of them. But then now they can go to the draft or stuff like that where there's going to be sleepers out. So many.
Exactly, like Devontae Smith in Alabama doesn't move nor tape, but Jalen Waddle because he was so far down the pecking order. Exactly, he needs another year tape. I agree with that 110%. And Pat Freiermuth to me is my tight end 1. I think he's way more complete than Brevin Jordan out of Miami and way more complete than Kyle. I'm a Gators fan. He's more complete than Kyle Pitts for sure. Pat Freiermuth to me, like I've been telling people, I'll take Parsons and Freiermuth in the 1st round, bro. I'm cool. Because we got 2 1st round picks.
Yeah, 2.
My whole thing is if I'm, I'll talk a little bit more about Gesicki when we get later on in the show. But if I can line up Gesicki on one side and Pat on the other, I'm rolling 2 tight end sets.
That's a killer, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how defenses are going to be stopped that. So
and you know what's crazy is film really helps you find, because here's the thing, a lot of people, they get the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round picks are the sexy picks to everyone, but where these scouts make their money is from the 3rd to the 6th. And that's usually where the tape helps you find gems. And now, like Pat said, you're going to be relying more than ever on coaches' opinions and coaches' evaluations. Like, here's a perfect example. I know he's not coming out this year, but I was ready to declare until the ACC announced that they're not playing football that I think Sam Howell is the best quarterback in college, not Trevor Lawrence. And now I can declare that all I want, but now I won't have tape this year to back that up. So even like me, I got an idea for a show where I wanted to do where, it was draft based and I had about 20 players and now I've had to reorder that whole thing. I've had to push the show back. So it's even affected draft analysts and content creators on what they want to do with this draft, because, I come from, my channel when I started out, I'm very heavily draft based. So this is hurting even me, bro. And it sucks because we're going to lose out on seeing so many. Like, I really wanted to see Sam Howell in his sophomore year from freshman year, because remember, we were all ready to declare Trevor Lawrence the best quarterback in college after his freshman year, but he really took a step back in that first half of his sophomore year, I think. And that's why they call it a sophomore slump. But, there's a lot of even freshmen, Jaden Daniels. Love Jaden Daniels. I won't be able to watch him bulk up and see what he's going to do this year. You know what I mean?
Kid from USC, Slav.
Yeah, for sure.
Keldon Slavas, yeah. He's a beast too, right? So he took over from JT Daniels, and again, another quarterback a lot of people are really high on, right? So, and here's another thing. We're going to miss out on guys who would have ascended this year. There are guys with a light bulb goes on in year 2 or year 3 after having a mediocre first or second year. We're going to miss out on that too.
Yeah. So, Joe Burrow was the perfect example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also draft news just came out. Adam Schefter tweeted, Michigan tackle Jalen Mayfield's declaring for the draft. I think that's a guy who I've seen on a few mock drafts as a first round pick. So just want to put that out there while we're live. So, yeah, I mean, the draft is going to have some pretty heavy implications on everything. I mean, and then we talked a little about rookies this season.
Yeah.
And I also think, like, new coaches, like, it's going to be hard for them to get used to them, because this is the first time where they're seeing their players play.
The Carolina Panthers.
Feel like Carolina Panthers, I have finishing just dead last. I mean, even though I love Bridgewater.
It's crazy how they're going to be able to practice. And get that schemes down with all new coach, with a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new receivers. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's just going to be a lot. All new coaches are going to really struggle, in my opinion. Maybe even new quarterbacks, like maybe Tom Brady busts. But I mean, I personally, for the Bucs, I think their defense is really going to carry them to the playoffs, not their offense, unlike a lot of people. So I think there's a lot of guys moving around this offseason. I think they're going to struggle. I think also the new coaches are going to struggle. So hopefully, look what the Niners are doing. They've only really signed guys who have familiarity with the system, whether it's Kerry Hyder, Jamar Taylor. I'm just naming random guys who had familiarity with some other guys in the system. Deion Jordan, as we talked about before, had familiarity with the team. So I feel like those are the guys that could succeed. But then the guys who have no familiarity whatsoever, like DeForest Buckner, traded to Indianapolis. I don't think there's that much familiarity there, although Frank Wright, really good defensive coach. So I think Buckner will succeed, but there's going to be other guys that are not going to succeed because of the scheme fit, and they haven't been able to get used to it.
I think the money this year is on teams who brought back the majority of their core, and which one of those teams manages to stay the most healthy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not even trying to be biased as a Packer fan, just seeing how I wasn't maybe so optimistic in February, but then as it goes along, now you look at it where it's like they have the same core pretty much back. Their receivers are definitely a question mark, but Rodgers goes down. You have I don't know, Jordan Love could come in. They have AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams. There's a lot of depth there that, it's not like you have to have these big new free agents and a bunch of new rookies have to really try and change the scheme and everything. They did that the year before. They brought in that new core with the Smith brothers and Amos and all of them. So they kind of have that going now where, Rashawn Gary's not a rookie anymore. Some of these guys could step up, but I think the 49ers is another type of team. Same things. Core comes back. Cowboys is interesting where, they have a talented team. They have a new coach, but the coach is, won a Super Bowl and he's already, whether what you like McCarthy or not, he's coaching the league, but he's with a new team. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Seattle,
too, speaking
right?
of the Cowboys, Seattle too. Speaking of the Cowboys, we didn't talk about Gerald McCoy's injury. That's something I completely forgot to mention, but that's another news story that I think is going to be. It might take a bit. It might be a bit bigger of an impact than most people expect. I know they have a stacked D line, but there's also just so many question marks in Dallas, and that's another thing that COVID could impact because. You brought in Everson Griffin. You brought in Aldon Smith. I'm forgetting who else. They brought in a lot of guys on that D line, and a lot of people are like Don Terry Poe too. Yeah, there's a ton of guys on that D line now that are new to that system, and a lot of people are hyping them up. I would not be surprised if there's just a ton of chemistry issues there, if there's just a lot of issues with the scheme or everything. So yeah, I mean, Gerald McCoy, I like that signing for Dallas, but now that he's gone, it could be really hard for that D line to step it up and have other guys step it up. So
absolutely. I think injuries you're already starting to see in the last 2 days. There's a bunch of guys tearing their ACL, hurting their Achilles, groins are people are popping their groin like crazy in the past 2 days.
For sure.
The pads are coming on and people haven't been adjusting. We're almost in late August now, and the pads are just starting to come on. Like, this is a complete new adjustment to these NFL players. When you're an 8-year vet, you're used to the routine, the same part of the year, the same thing. Bodies are trying to get adjusted now. You're seeing injuries, and I don't know. It's the depth. The depth's another thing, is how much depth these teams are going to have. Are they their practice squad? I know they expanded that this year because of COVID, but you see a team like the New England Patriots, they had about like 8 players, and a lot of them are, like Dante Hightowers, Patrick Chunks, Marcus Cannon's, pretty solid, significant players for their team. So I'm curious to see how
all gone.
They can, change that in a month and get people adjusted without Tom Brady.
I mean, and on top of it, you look at Danny Shelton left, Jamie Collins left, Kyle Van Noy obviously left. Really, who's the best player on their offense? You could actually make an argument it's Joe Tooney. You could actually make an argument that Joe Tooney is their best player on offense, because I'm not a believer in Cam. I've broken this down to people. When you look at his 2018 stats, they're very deceiving, because when you actually look at the Christian McCaffrey impact on those stats, for example, I think he threw 24 touchdowns that year, and I think 6 or 8 of them went to Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey had almost 30% of his. I think he had about 27% of his total yardage through the air was to Christian McCaffrey. And people think people legitimately think James White is going to step in and be Christian McCaffrey. I'm like, are you guys crazy right now? To me, Christian McCaffrey, we were talking about the Panthers earlier, and that's what sucks about the Panthers. To me, the best player in the NFL is Christian McCaffrey. The only thing he doesn't do is snap the ball. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when you look at Christian McCaffrey with running backs, you can't afford to waste these years, man. Like, these are the years where when you get that production needs to be on top of a good team in front of them, because then you're a legitimate contender. Like, are we going to look back in 5 years and be like, they literally wasted the best player in football for 5 years? Because it's sure lining up like that.
The same story can be with Saquon too. Saquon can be the same story, and we'll see with that. But no, I know it's McCaffrey. The thing with Cam Newton is, that's the other thing with tight ends. Like, I've never really seen a tight end really succeed in his rookie year. They have 2 of their best tight ends are mid-tier rookies. They're like mid-round draft picks, Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene.
So I didn't even have high on my draft board.
I know they have like a veteran, like I forgot, Lucasi, I think he opted out. He's not a rookie, but there's 2 rookies that are supposed to be their top 2 tight ends. So they're going to really rely on N'Keal Harry having to step up, and he might be playing better with Cam Newton, might fit him better, but like, there might be more jump ball opportunities. But I never thought we'd get to the point where the New England Patriots would be Mohamed Sanu, Lamar Miller, and Cam Newton. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Just to like clarify everything. So 775 yards of Cam's 3,395 came from Christian McCaffrey, so that's 22.8%. 6 of Cam's 24 passing touchdowns, so that's 25%. Here's the big one. 95 of Cam's 320 completions came from Christian McCaffrey. That's 29.6%.
Yeah, man, it's crazy, dude. So that's
why
he's waiting. No, Christian McCaffrey.
His best season in 2018 is because he had Christian McCaffrey and Norv Turner. And Norv Turner is like one of the friendliest offensive coaches for short rhythmic passing. And if you look at it, Cam Newton wasn't pushing the ball down the field in 2018. It was all short to intermediate stuff. It was not. His attempts beyond 20 plus yards were nothing. I think he had I think it was at 8 to 12 attempts of 20 plus yards beyond all season from when because then he got hurt, right? So he wasn't even pushing the ball, man. So you look at that team, man. I know everyone's talking about Stidham through 3 or 4 picks in practice today, and everyone's just eating Jarrett Stidham alive. But I'm telling you, it's a pretty scary thing when when apparently Brian Hoyer is apparently been their best quarterback.
Dude, don't even bring up Brian. That man ruined my life for 4 or 5 weeks. I could not. 2017, I went to that week 1 game, scorching hot, and he could not do anything. And then, like, after that, like, even though it was a close game, like, it was his fault because he didn't do anything. He couldn't come up in the clutch, man. That guy ruined my life. So, also want to bring up another injury that happened. This one's a bit bigger. We were talking about injuries earlier. Mac Wilson suffered a significant hyperextension today. NFL Update just tweeted that. It's per Mike Garafolo. I haven't seen a recovery time or anything, but just want to bring that up. So another knee injury with all this COVID stuff. So
yeah,
I don't
Artie
know if
Burns
that's a direct impact.
is another one today. He tore his ACL, corner of the Bears.
Jalen Hurd too.
We lost
Jalen Hurd.
We lost.
I was thinking about that before.
We lost Vince Beagle today too.
Yeah, him too.
Yeah, former Packer.
Achilles.
There's a lot of guys that are just gonna kill their losses are just gonna kill each team for whether. I mean, I don't know if it's a direct impact of COVID, but still, like, I mean, they haven't been training as much. So, yeah, I mean, the lack of training is definitely going to impact every team. So, yeah. All right, we are somewhat running out of time, so let's make sure we get to this last segment before we have to go. One breakout player for each team. Let's start. I don't really care who starts. If one of you guys want to go, then go ahead.
Yeah, so basically for me, it was going to be OJ Howard or Mike Gesicki, and I'm going to go with Mike Gesicki just because when you look at Albert Wilson opting out, and then Alan Hearns as well, those are 2 of our top slot guys because apparently right now the guy leading it in camp is Chester Rogers, the former Indianapolis Colt. And when you look at Gesicki last year, you want to throw Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz, whoever you want in the pile. Mike Gesicki lined up the most out of all NFL tight ends last year in the slot and on the boundary. So Albert Wilson being our number 1 slot guy, clearly the targets are going to increase. And another thing I wanted to point out to people is, do you guys remember David Nelson?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you remember how when he was in Buffalo for the first few years, he was actually a tight end, not a wide receiver?
I think I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think so.
So if you look at Chan Gailey, when Chan Gailey had David Nelson, I believe it was 2011, he was targeted 97 times.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're going to target Gesicki 95, 100 times, I will safely say 75 to 80 catches. So to me, I mean, that is my breakout player this year. And I'm not trying to be biased. I'm just going based off the opt-out of Wilson means increased targets for the guy who already had the most targets in the slot out of all tight ends last year.
Yeah, I mean, you're not biased. You're like, I actually want to put him down as mine, but since you're the Dolphins fan, I thought you should talk about that for sure. So, yeah, I guess I can go next. And this is a guy that I think some people have mentioned all the time and some people have not, and that's Deontay Johnson. And looking at his situation right now is one of the most ideal situations that you want for a receiver. Like last year, his stats, I have them pulled up right now. He had 59 receptions for 680 yards as a rookie with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges as his quarterback. Like literally the two, like had the worst offense last year and put up really productive stats, had better stats than Juju Smith-Schuster, although Juju did miss time. Juju's another breakout candidate too, but I'm going to talk about Deontay Johnson because I think Deontay Johnson, like after last season, he went really under the radar as a rookie receiver because you got guys like Debo, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin. He was kind of like an aforementioned thought. But I think
hey, you forgot about Preston, bro, and he was leading
Williams,
before he got hurt. He was leading all rookie receivers, brother.
That's true. Yeah, I mean Preston Williams, gotta bring him up. Gotta respect those guys too. But yeah, I just feel like now you got Big Ben back. This is a guy who's thrown who's been sometimes like thrown for 5,000 yards as of recently. It's a pass first offense. So Juju's going to kill it, and Deontay Johnson's going to be stepping it up a lot. And you could see a situation kind of like 2017 where you had AB and Juju just killing it out there. I don't even know who's going to be like that Antonio Brown guy in 2017 if it's just like that, because you really could make an argument for both considering how both of their careers have shaped up. I mean, Juju looked like the next big thing with Big Ben, and after last season with what's his name, Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, it just did not work out for him, and that's why he declined. That's why people are so low on him this year. Everyone's saying he's just overhyped. Personally, I have him as a top 10 receiver, and Deontay Johnson I think could easily be a top 10 receiver as well. So yeah, that's my breakout candidate for this year.
I'm gonna I like both of those, to be honest. Gazecki's from Jersey, right by me. I respect that. And Deontay Johnson, he had a killer rookie year, stud. But I'm gonna do the same exact thing Sam did and take a receiver from that draft class. I really believe that he as well would be a top 10 receiver in fantasy or whatever you look at it. Is Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown on the Ravens. From watching Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, their tape in college, this dude. They had CeeDee Lamb and they had Mark Andrews, but this guy was different. This guy was one of the most explosive playmakers I've really ever seen in the last decade, we'll say.
Yeah, and that's why he was first off the board.
Yeah, I just think that he really helped Baker and Kyler Murray out so much. He stretched the field out, and he came into the combine and everything with an injury, like a foot injury. But last year, if you listen to his interviews and everything, he was banged up. His toe he was not the same. They said he was maybe not even 60% himself last year. And if you watch week 1, they play the Baltimore Ravens. They put Baltimore Ravens play the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Hollywood Brown torched them. He had
they played
2 or 3 touchdowns.
Dolphins, I think.
Had over the Dolphins, wrong Florida team.
Yeah,
first play was the Dolphins.
You thought you were going to get out of that.
No, I knew I wasn't. He killed us, man.
They had they won 55-10, something like that, and he just was all over the field. And I don't even think he was fully healthy then. But Marquise Brown had 46 catches, 584 yards, 7 touchdowns last year. But he started only 11 games, and he had 71 targets. So. I don't know why those 30-something balls. I don't know if he drops. He said he has a 62% catch percentage last year, but he was really hampered by that injury. And I just think that Baltimore is going to want to air the ball out a little more this year. They have J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram. They're going to get the run game going for sure. But I think they're going to start doing different things in the passing game where I think Hollywood Brown's going to really stretch the field. They're going to have Mark Andrews to still keep an eye on, and Devin Duvernay is another really explosive rookie that's going to stretch the field as well. Willie Snead is a solid receiver. He can block and everything, but I really think that you're going to see Hollywood Brown have, I will say, over 12 touchdown catches, 1,000 yards, and maybe at least 70 receptions this year.
Yeah, they got to use. I love Devin Duvernay. Coming out of Texas, they got to use him out of the slot if they really want to utilize him. But man, sure. I mean, he was only targeted 5 times against us. He had 4 receptions for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he had 91 yards after the catch because a lot of people forget we threw Minkah Fitzpatrick back at safety, and he was just killing us over the top. Even Minkah didn't know what's going on, man.
Minkah was
and from what I understood, that was at the healthiest he had been in all season. And I had heard exactly what Pat heard, that he was nowhere near 100% all year, let alone the game where he burnt us. So, I see them, you really saw them, a lot of people look at Lamar Jackson and basically think because he's fast, automatically, he only throws outside of the pocket, but Lamar Jackson stood upright in the pocket a lot last year, and he
won the MVP for a reason.
Oh, yeah, and, Marquise, he's one of the rare talents that can stretch a field like no one else can, man. So I totally agree with you, bro. I was heavy on Kyler Murray when he was coming out. I wanted the Dolphins to take him, and Marquise was continuously the guy who more to me than CeeDee Lamb flashed.
Me too.
Yeah, I agree 110%, bro.
Now, I just want to throw one more bonus one out there because you mentioned it earlier. Reason was KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, and Cortland Sutton out there. You draft Albert O. You got solid tight ends. You have Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay.
I love Albert O.
And it's to the point where Drew Lock's just got to throw the football out there. If he gets it out, he could have a really killer year. And I think, no one saw – not no one saw Pat Mahomes and Lamar winning an MVP, but it wasn't definitely a thing that people were predicting. And it was the thing was their second year in the league. Mahomes won his second year. Lamar won his second year. I'm not saying Drew Lock's going to win the MVP, but I'm saying this could be a sleeper breakout quarterback of the year, for example, because he has the weapons. He just needs to he won every game or lost one game his rookie year in 5 games.
Yeah. You know what I liked when I watched the film on him last year was the one thing, like, it's nothing sexy, it's nothing like that, but you saw him in games when he would take chances. There was a few times where he almost got picked off. He didn't get picked off, but he almost got picked off. And you saw him. He learned in game from his mistake. You know what I mean? One thing he was continuously getting caught on was hanging corners, right? Guys who hang look like they're going to come up and then they go back into coverage. Mm-hmm. And he was in game adapting. I like from a quarterback when I see I got away with that, I'm not going to do it again. Not someone who I got away with it. Okay, let me put more zip on it and challenge it again. You know what I mean? I like guys who adapt. People might say he's playing scared. No, you're playing smart, man. Especially when you're a rookie, right? Like, I liked what I saw from Drew Lock in terms of when he took a licking, whether it was a bad throw or whatever, he made sure not to make that same mistake again in the game, whereas you look at a lot of rookie quarterbacks, they will, right? So I really think, Broncos, mark them down for me as my sleeper team in the AFC.
Absolutely. Yeah. They could be a wild card team this year.
Yeah, he just seems like he has that right mental makeup, like that it factor. Like he's a leader. It seems like he's it feels like the team rallies around him. And I think that you're going to see a lot of good things this year from him.
And I love his arm, man. He's got great arm.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when going in 2019, I had him as my third best quarterback that draft behind Kyler and Haskins.
Adam is my
one.
I
thought, like, you had him, Drew Lock as your one? Damn.
I'm a huge Drew Lock
hopefully, fan. I think, I really liked him. I was shocked the Giants went Daniel Jones over him. And, I mean, both could break out this year. I think Drew Lock, with all those weapons in Denver, has the much higher chance to do so. So,
they even drafted
I'm really liking the upside for him.
They even drafted Cushenberry too, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, they did. And
they did.
Natane Muti, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Fresno State.
The guard.
Yeah, they really both. And they got
he's a big he was projected as the number one guard before he started hitting him, eh?
Yeah, for sure. And who Glasgow? Yeah, Glasgow from Detroit. Yeah,
Detroit.
That's another guy they're going all in with.
You got AJ Boye, Jarrell Casey. I mean, Von Miller, Eddie Bradley Chubb, Justin Simmons, one of the best safeties in the NFL. Like this
is the backfield. Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. Oh,
Royce Freeman, even
Royce Freeman, you could even put there. But I mean, it's a stacked team. So I think, I know we're out of time, but I'd love to talk about the Broncos on another episode. Just like I know I'm hoping to do like maybe a season prediction episode later on. So that's something we can just go off about the Broncos. So yeah, all right. Well, we are basically out of time. I know Reason has to go. Do you guys have any final thoughts you want to add?
No, I appreciate everyone for listening. It was a fun time. I can't wait to get back on it next week and talk more football. But thank everyone for listening. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, you and I got to get on our fan support because look at all the Dolphins fans in the comments, man. Reason's just killing it with that. So
yeah,
you
and
I got to bring some guys in.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't know where my Niners fans are at, but this is literally all Dolphins fans in the comments, and then Usaid, who's helping us out throughout the way. Shout out Usaid if you're watching as well.
Shout out to the Brawl
really
Network.
Appreciate what you're doing. Brawl Network, Austin, all of those guys. We really appreciate what you're doing, and we're really excited to just move forward with this. So, yeah. You got anything, Reason?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, make sure you smash that like button. It does help the algorithm in YouTube for us. So smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't. And for all the Dolphin fans, tomorrow follow me on Twitter at the _real_reason. I'll be sitting in and live tweeting from the Zoom press conferences after practice tomorrow. So if you guys want to get updated on what players are saying before the Zooms hit the internet, just follow me if you want to keep up to date on Dolphin stuff.
Yeah, make sure to just check all us out here. We got the brawlnetwork.com, at Network Brawl, at NinerWire Sam, at The Real Reason, at Pat Trena. You guys can find us all there. We also got Instagrams, should be in our bios on Twitter, so make sure to check those out as well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the future of this, guys. This was a great episode. So, and I hope you guys watching are also really looking forward to that. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. All right, we out.
We'll be back
to you guys.